Millennia is a game that asks, what if? What if the world was shaped by legendary heroes? What if steam-powered technology was the future? What if aliens visited the Earth and conquered all in their path? It's a historical 4X in the loosest terms. A few alterations to the timeline can make the game veer off into places unknown. I covered the demo a few months ago and saw a lot of potential hampered by some obvious problems, but now it's time for the full version, and there's a hell of a lot to like here. Let's get cracking. If you played the demo, you might have had the same takeaways. I liked the age system, the national spirits, and the city management. The UI, the graphics, the visuals in general, not so much. And all in all, the game lacked personality. The UI and graphics have received some work, but it's still one of the game's weak spots. The good stuff though, now that's been built up on in a big way. Looking back at the demo, it cuts right off as things start to get interesting, and only provides a thin slice of the game's key systems. I'm going to start by looking at the aspect I was most excited about, even though I'm well aware that it's going to be pretty boring for a lot of folks. But I love production chains and micromanagement, and the approach to cities here is great. On an empire level, things are different in Millennia. You don't just plop down a new city and start doing your thing. Instead, you create a vassal. It works independently, but pays you tribute. You'll discover neutral cities around the world which can be swayed to join you by diplomacy or a show of force. They can be left to their own devices, or you can integrate them for direct control. This is a good system. It smudges the line between playing wide and playing tall. If you want to focus on one important capital city, you can still cover a swathe of land with vassalized territory and have them feed back passive resources. Likewise, if you lean into a wider style of play, you can integrate them one by one, focusing on the most advantageous cities first. Though, city management can be a headache here, and it's definitely good to take it one city at a time. I can't think of another 4X game that gives you so much control over what's going on in your cities. Having resources processed by multiple buildings is important. That raw iron you take out of the ground is going to be useful for a while, but as you develop, you'll want to process it into ingots, and then turn those ingots into weapons or tools. Every city is a little puzzle with a ton of possibilities. The downside to this is if you want to integrate lots of cities. Well, you better be ready to go in and tinker with them every few turns, because the automation isn't the best. An integrated city won't build any improvements automatically, and you can't just tell it to focus production or focus growth. You have to make these changes yourself. When you unlock new improvements, you'll get better buildings that process more efficiently. You can swap out some improvements and diversify, provide for a city's need for food, housing, sanitation, education, and religion, and it'll grow. Don't give your people what they want and they'll rebel, cause chaos in the land, and make your day a miserable one. Cities can be extended by building towns which can later be specialized, and you can create outposts on your borders, absorbing that land later. And you can get pretty far by just focusing on one location. Here my lands are spread far and wide, but I'm only directly controlling one city. But what a city it is. So that whole side of the game is real neat. There's a lot more to it than most 4X games, and it will require you to have your finger on the button and checking in to make sure things are running smoothly. It's not the flashiest feature, but it's a big thing Millennia has going for it. The other key aspect has a lot more fanfare, the age system. So, like any other historical 4X game, you'll advance through the eras. Starting in the Stone Age, you'll progress through Bronze, Iron, the Middle Ages, Renaissance, Enlightenment, and into modern day. All of human progress boiled down into 10 tidy sections. But this isn't the course you have to take. Every era has several outcomes. You can take the usual historical step forward, or you can go off the beaten path, advancing to an age where great heroes travel the world completing quests, or a period of plague ravaging the land. You can take the timeline into an age of great explorers or rampant religious persecution. Some of them are a little outside of historical plausibility, others are real curveballs. The Age of Aether tells an alternate timeline where humanity harnessed a magic-like property, built great flying airships, and utilized the first automatons. Each era has a set of requirements, and the first person to fulfill them and research the next age takes every player there. You might be washing your hands 30 times a day, but if your unhygienic neighbor is a few steps ahead of you, they can lock your country into a century-long plague. These bad timelines reflect a turbulent time, but they aren't always negative. You can choose to bring in the Age of Intolerance by ignoring your people's need for religion, but this period gives huge boosts to religious output. You can steer your game into the bad places and reap the rewards, or just use them to mess with your opponents, also a valid strategy. This keeps games feeling unexpected. You can't plan too far. If your whole strategy hinges on a specific age coming up, chances are someone's gonna lock in something else throwing you off course. That's a big thing in Millennia. It's a lot more reactive than other 4X games, but it works because you're not locked into any particular strategy. The game is built around adaptation. Picking a country and fitting your game plan around their abilities isn't gonna help you here, because the different nations of the world are basically the same. Your initial pick determines your flag and city names, and you get a small starting bonus, but it's really not game altering. All your empire power comes from choices you make during the game. Every few eras, you can pick a national spirit and government which shape your game plan. Some of them feed into each other, other times you might pick contrasting powers to cover all bases. The demo didn't really do this aspect justice. It's a huge part of the game, and as you combine different national spirits, your playstyle takes unexpected turns. You can unlock new resources, hone in on certain aspects, and enable different playstyles. But as your empire is growing, so too is the world. Every age a new mechanic emerges. You might have to start providing education for your people or start a religion. You will unlock social fabric points which grant passive bonuses based on your government output, and later you'll engage with other nations in the space race or wage an ideological war against them. If you play your cards right, you can even make underwater cities. I cannot express how happy this makes me. The variant ages bring yet more mechanics. For example, the Age of Discovery adds all sorts of discoverable landmarks across the map and has you embark on expeditions with conquistadors. This brings something into the mix which I think is really important. The exploration part of 4X games is one of its cornerstones, but it's usually reserved to the early game. By adding in new things to explore every few ages, it keeps that feeling of discovery cropping up again and again. I'm a huge fan of this design. There's also two other metrics ticking away constantly: innovation and chaos. Innovation is tied to your various spirit and government choices, and can provide passive bonuses, new units, or world wonders. Chaos does the exact opposite. It spawns disasters, rebels, barbarian armies, and just generally bad stuff that'll test your nation unexpectedly. I like these systems, though chaos is completely negated by a strong economy. You have enough money in the bank, and you can completely circumvent any disaster by throwing a bit of coin around. I'd rather that wasn't an option, because you're basically just paying to remove the system from the game. Saying that though, there's more than enough war and conflict to go around in Millennia. It's struck a balance between unit stacks and units per tile. You have an army that can consist of 3 different units, though these slots are increased with certain technologies. Different units have different effects and turn orders, so balancing and optimizing what's in an army will go further than just bundling together your highest power unit. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The battle screens are goofy, but they do provide some useful insight. You'll see that some units attack before others, some prioritize damaged targets, and some hit enemy morale, allowing you to rout your foe and hit them on the retreat. Attacking enemy cities can be suicide, but with a few siege engines, or better yet some bombs, you can blitz through them and start carving through an opposing nation like a hot knife through butter. Enemy cities will start as vassals, so you can take a big chunk of enemy land without the headache of having to manage half a dozen or so new cities. So it all starts out in familiar territory, but it quickly veers into unknown waters, and that changes how you approach the game. With Civ, I'll have some sort of idea of a game plan and I'll spend the match working towards that. But that sort of mindset doesn't get you far here. I went into Millennia doing the same thing. I looked at the ages and thought, oh, I'm gonna go for this and that, I'm gonna get this national spirit and I'm gonna build into that one. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. This was a big lesson to learn. The game is so reactive. Even in the first few turns, there isn't a best option. Picking a spirit based on your surroundings is going to have so much more impact than one that plays into a theoretical grand plan. Getting stuck into Millennia meant undoing a lot of muscle memory from other 4X games and 20-something years of Civ. But you know what? I like it. Things don't go your way and you have to play reactively. You have to go with the flow, improvise, adapt and overcome. There's a lot of systems that make it feel dynamic. Many of your decisions come from domain XP. Every few turns you have a decision to make, from spawning military units to spreading your religion to creating an envoy to negotiate with enemy states. Then you've got culture, another metric which gives a big boost every few turns. You can create new towns which expand your cities, get a boost to your innovation points, increase vassal populations, or simply get a boost to one of your cities. Which is quite boring, but I found that to be the best option in nearly every case. There is a lot I like about Millennia. It brings new systems to the table and it keeps sprinkling in mechanics and features throughout the game. Every match feels different. The city management side has a lot of depth, and I felt there was no general rule of thumb. It all had to be adapted to the situation. A good balance was struck between playing wide and tall, and there's clear advantages for both styles. Its wildcard is the age system, and I think it's a great mechanic to build the game around. They are diverse, interesting, and having one locked in unexpectedly can upend a game. I like my sense of security shaken, and this does that. The AI will doom the world given the chance, and you just have to lean into the chaos. There's an awful lot of good stuff here, but balancing out the scales are issues that bug me, and I'm sure you've picked up on a few of these as I've been going along. First off, the visuals. Okay, yes, they've improved since the demo, but they're still not great. Some aspects do look good, tile improvements in the art for different ages, I really like those, but outside of that, most of the game is really lacking visual impact. Natural wonders don't feel special, biome tiles create a harsh patchwork which doesn't feel right, the UI feels generic, and some of the icons feel clip-arty. Clip-arty, is that a word? That feeds into another issue of the game, one that really holds it back. For something with so many crazy ideas and bold mechanics, it really lacks a sense of personality. Take the flavor text. You can find it when you dig through, but nearly all of it is taken from the same 2 or 3 sources. There's no joy in these little nuggets of information. Oftentimes, the game just feels flat. The age system is a hallmark feature, but bringing forth a new golden age just doesn't feel impactful. This is something Civilization and even Humankind captured well. The visual and audio feedback just makes things feel grand and weighty. Obviously, C-Prompt are a way smaller studio, and it's unfair to expect the same level, but some small changes to heighten the atmosphere would really go a long way. The lack of personality stretches into diplomacy, and again, weightless. The face of an opposing nation is just a crude flag speaking the same 5 or 6 text lines at you. Every time that diplomacy window popped up, any immersion was gone. But frankly, I didn't really bother going down the diplomatic route. The AI only really understands brute force. If your army is small, they'll be an ass to you. When you can crush them, then they want to be your friend. There's no nuance, but that's a tale as old as time. 4X game has problematic AI. Hopefully we see some improvements there. The other issues are minor bugbears, but things that I think should just be in every 4X game. You can't change key bindings. Map creation is incredibly limited. Faction creation, something I was pretty hyped about, is more or less pointless. You have to use the city sets from an existing faction, so all you're really doing is changing the flag and the name. And yeah, I was 100% going to make a nation of dirty sounding town names. Imagine my disappointment when I couldn't. So it's rough around the edges, it's not pleasant on the eyes, but beneath all that there's something really appealing that feels unique in the space. This game is Willem Dafoe. Coarse but captivating. If anyone's got a better comparison, drop it in the comments, but I think that works. It's Willem Dafoe, that works. Its bones are really solid, and there's already a ton of depth to dig into. It could really just do with a bit more attention to detail, some quality of life, and some balance in AI tuning. I think it could have used a few more months in the oven, but what's done is done. Am I going to keep playing Millennia? Absolutely. I'm really enjoying the game, and 50 hours or so in, and I'm still finding a ton of new things. Is this going to stop me playing Civ or other 4X games? Well, no. That whole conversation is just moot, in my opinion. This isn't a Civ killer, and it was never going to be. It's easy to draw comparisons on paper, but really, the games are apples and oranges. This is a really different experience, and one that I found deeply enjoyable. Flawed, sure, but there's something really satisfying here that's kept me coming back again and again. and something that I hope has a really strong future ahead of it.